Hello, everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey from Carolina Girl Genealogy, and we've got a fabulous panel as usual. We've got Melissa Barker, our archive lady. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, hope everybody's doing okay tonight.
Yeah, we're glad that you're here. We've got Shelley Murphy, who's our family tree girl. Hi, Shelley.
Hi.
Good to
Welcome to everybody.
glad to have you here. And Bernice Bennett is here from
Hello.
GenieRoots.com. Our panel is very happy tonight to welcome our special guest, and that's Toni Carrier. And Toni is the director of the Center for Family History at the International African American Museum. And we are so excited because she is moving to Charleston to take over that job. And will you start off by just telling us a little bit about the museum and your role? I know they broke ground in October, and that's really
Sure. Well,
yeah.
we met our fundraising goals, and as you know, we recently broke ground. So the construction has started, and we are scheduled to open in the winter of 2021.
Oh, okay,
So
great.
I'll be moving up finally a permanent party to Charleston in July of this coming year.
I'm so excited to have you so close.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing a lot of regional seminars and things like that, because I've been sort of commuting back and forth for so many years.
Yes.
But to be there all the time, we can really set up some seminars, and it'll be nice.
Exactly. It's going to be great. Now, tell everybody, if they don't know, where it's located, the museum.
Okay.
It's a very special place.
It is. The museum will be located on the site of the former Gadsden's Wharf, which was the place where about 30,000 enslaved Africans were brought in at the very end of the Atlantic slave trade. So in the very last couple of years, there was a rush to import enslaved people, and all of them were brought into Gadsden's Wharf. And so the ground, is sacred. So they're building the museum up so that the ground underneath becomes a memorial. And
so
they're
beautiful.
planning
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, and there's going to be a reflecting pond and memorial gardens and places to sit and contemplate. And that memorial, the memorial grounds will always be free. Whether you go inside the museum or not, anybody can come down and just enjoy the memorial garden. So
that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Now, so there will be a family history center in the museum, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
so you are the director of that. So since it's not built yet, what is it that you're doing now?
Well, our website is live. In fact, this July will be our third birthday for the website. So we launched it in mid-July, 2.5 years ago. And so that keeps us plenty busy. As you know, Robin Foster, the amazing Robin Foster, writes a blog every week on family history research, where she presents another tutorial to show you different record sets and different strategies for researching your ancestors.
Yeah, she does a great job. She does a great job with that.
Oh, she does. Yeah. And so we just recently posted her 110th blog post.
Wow.
So that keeps us on our toes.
That's amazing. That is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that we asked you to come on tonight was because we wanted to talk a little bit about African American research and how we can work together. And this is something that I've been talking about a lot recently too. How can we work together? And when I say we, I'm talking about the community of genealogists. I'm talking about especially those of us that are descendants of slaveholders and those of us that are descendants of the enslaved. How can we work together?
Right.
And and I know that people will say, well, I didn't come from the South and my family didn't own slaves. And that's such a misnomer. It's such a fallacy. I think people are surprised when they start looking
Oh, definitely. That's
through their
slavery in the
records.
north. Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
definitely. So we thought we'd talk about that for a few minutes and give people some ideas and some suggestions on what we can do to work together.
I'm so glad you want to take that topic back up again. I saw your show where you opened that discussion, and I'm glad you want to take it up again now. Because it's the holidays and people's minds are on giving, and so I hope we can urge people to also have their minds on sharing. Um, as you know, records of enslaved people were primarily kept by the slaveholding family during antebellum times. And so often the records that document enslaved families are actually bound up in family Bibles and family papers of former slaveholding families. And it's so important to share those. There was an article that we wrote a few months ago where a dear friend of ours who is a descendant of the people who own Fox Bank Plantation in Berkeley, which is up the Cooper River, where the ball plantations were. And he found a family Bible. And inside the family Bible, family register, there was a notation of the people he had purchased, enslaved people he had purchased. And he'd never seen anything like that before. And so he contacted us, and I said, I've never seen anything like that before either.
Yeah, especially in a Bible.
Yeah. But when we looked at it, you won't believe it was an absolute key piece of solving a research mystery that we've been working on for 8 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Now you sent me a link. Is that one of the links that you sent me? Okay,
it's the Guyton Family Bible.
Let me see if I can work the technology and pull it up, because you know me and technology, and so I know that what's going to probably happen is the Facebook page is going to pop up from where that's it right there. Can y'all see that? Is it showing?
Yes.
Yeah. So and we will put this link to in the blog post that I always write about our shows. So
thank you, because it's a great example of what can happen if you're not afraid to share records of your former slaveholding family.
And I think that's the problem too, is I know that, and oh, look at that with the names. Oh my goodness, that is just beautiful. And then what you've done is you've actually extracted those names out. So that those names get out on the internet, and so families can find them if they're looking
through
for
a Google
them.
search.
Right, because anything that you put out there, Google can find it. So that's just wonderful. That's a great idea. And I know the first time that I just discovered, and I had to take a second look, and you're kind of incredulous, like, I can't believe this is happening, because I'm from South Carolina. How naive could I be? You just start doing research, and then it's right there in my face, but you get a little afraid, what are people going to think of me? Are they going to blame me? Are they going to, and so I have heard a lot of people be a little afraid of what to do with these records. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we've started recently in the community having these discussions, because we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be worried. We should do what was done with this Bible. We should pull out the names. We should get the records out there so that people can find. These names are names that haven't been spoken and remembered.
That's right.
For decades. And so, you discover it the first time they've been said in decades is when somebody's...
they're stepping back into the historical light. Well, I can tell you that when Jack Lyons, who's our dear friend, shared those Bible records, no ill came to him whatsoever. In fact, he has made some very close, wonderful friends who now research with him descendants of the people that his family enslaved.
Yes.
And so every time he finds a new document, he just gathers them all up right away and sends it out. And it's become a really, I think, a rewarding thing for him.
And I've had that experience too, because I've had people reach out as I've made blog posts and sent them to there's various websites that you can put them on, those blog posts and things like that, and I've had descendants reach out to me and say, thank you. What else do you know? And let's work together.
Right.
And I've had people contact me and say, I'm a descendant of a slave that your ancestor used to own, and sometimes people, I know I've heard people say, oh, what do they want from me? And are they, no, they just want your help. They're looking
Right.
for their family.
Right.
So I encourage people to, answer those back and work with people on those types of things. Does anybody else have any experience with those types of situations that y'all would like to talk about? Bernice or Shelley or Melissa?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have communicated with the descendant of the slave owner of my family out of South Carolina. In fact, we've been talking for years now, and really, she helped me.
Mm-hmm.
She, just opened it up and shared with us the information that she had, of which we may have found eventually, but just to say that she was willing to do that, it made all of the difference to my cousins and I when we saw our ancestor on the inventory of her ancestor.
I think, Bernice, too, I think it can bring some healing as well. It's something positive that we can do when we find these records, is to help somebody else. I think it bridges a lot of things. It brings some healing to both parties. I really do. And so that's another reason is, to be able to work together and have some discussion and dialogue, and not have the contention that could happen, or the fear like we talked about before. So so that's wonderful. Melissa or Shelley?
And you're mentioning fear.
Uh-huh.
You're mentioning fear, but I would say to everyone, don't let fear prevent you from doing the right thing.
Exactly.
If you find a document in your family records, just go ahead on and share it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
may be amazed at the response that you receive.
Mm-hmm.
And so do it. Just do it.
Right. And I always feel especially when I find this, and especially I found a couple of times just these lists of people, and I found once one that you could tell it was generational. It was mother and the child, and then the child and her children. There wasn't a father listed, but you had the women and her children.
Wow.
And I almost just had this feeling they guided me to it because they wanted their names out. There was a reason I found it, so I could get it out. And like you said, you may have found those things, years from now, but because it was found, when it was found, those names were remembered and connected even sooner than they would have been. So
Right.
it's all about them saying, hey, remember me, find me, help me, connect with my family. And so I really do think there's an element in that too. And we need to be open to that, and not be afraid to even go down that path. I know I've talked to some people who've said, well, I found that, and I don't want to deal with it. I just put that ancestor away. I don't want to look at his records. I'm mad at that ancestor, and I'm not going to research him, and I'm not going to. Well, that doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody to do that. So,
Not even you.
No, it helps.
Right.
It helps nobody to do that. And I've told people before, you are not responsible for your ancestors' actions, but you can do something positive through something that your ancestor did. You can always find something positive, and the positive here is to get those records out. And I think that's the thing that we need to do. What about you, Shelley?
Well, it's a daily thing for me since July 1. And I've been doing the research for the University of Virginia and but I'm doing it reverse. So I'm finding descendants of the enslaved laborers.
And then,
so I kind of, it flips it back and forth during the research, but I'm actually not starting. You know how we always say, start with yourself?
Yeah.
No, I'm starting the other way. I'm starting with the enslaved person or the slave owner, and then coming forward.
Right.
I say forward, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And so there is a lot of fear. I know one person, just as an example, just said, run everything by me first before you say anything.
Oh,
type
yeah.
thing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
at first I didn't catch that. Then I had to think about it, and I said, oh, she wants to know and
Mhm.
be prepared.
Yeah.
Great. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm finding the surprising, it's not attitude, but the emotional piece when I'm talking with the descendants, the
Mhm.
African American descendants,
Mhm.
it becomes emotional
Sure.
because now you look at this university, they probably pass it every day. And to know that their ancestor was there, doesn't matter if it was the washerwoman, the bricklayer, the carpenter, the
Right.
blacksmith,
Right.
or the cook or whatever.
Yeah.
But when that place was being built, now you're on hallowed ground.
Exactly.
And because your
Yeah.
ancestor as a
Exactly.
slave
Yeah.
was there, and
Right.
the
Right.
horrible things that happened were there. All of
Exactly.
that, and this institution is still going on. I think I'm lucky in the aspect of where I'm at helps to contribute because we
Mhm.
have the 3 historical homes in the area: Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and James Monroe, and they rented their slaves to the university. So I've been lucky to
Wow.
be able
Right.
to have access to these
Uh-huh.
records.
Wow.
And
That
so
is
it's
amazing.
pretty much spreading throughout Central Virginia
Mhm.
and other counties, maybe 2 hours away or something like that. So some of TJ's friends rented their slaves and stuff. But I think
Right.
the emotional aspect for me, there's always challenges,
Mhm.
but the emotional aspect for me has been surprising and also for me to embrace because I'm also seeing the premise that Family Search had put out on the wiki that only about 15% of the slaves took the surnames. That's where my challenges are.
Right. That's
Is
yeah.
because
Yeah.
there might not be a last name. So
Exactly.
it's connecting them back to
Mhm.
time and place
Exactly.
more than looking
Yeah.
at a surname. And
Right.
it has to be acceptable
Exactly.
because there's no other way in some cases we're ever going to solve.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that when we come across something to get it
Yeah.
out there because we might be the only one that's run across this record. It
Correct.
could be in some obscure archive somewhere that we just happen across it as we're researching, and to not get it out there is to not let these people be found. And so it's so important. What about you, Melissa?
I actually don't have this experience in my own research, but I have a great example of someone who's a friend of mine. His name is, and you all may know him, John Baker. He wrote the book of the Washingtons of the Wessington Plantation, which is Robertson County, Tennessee, which is not too far from me. A great friend of mine, but he is truly all about sharing. They do, I believe they still do the family reunion every year there at the plantation, and it's for the slave owners and the enslaved, the descendants, and they come together every year. But he's written a book called that too, and so his research is absolutely phenomenal. If you've never heard him speak, he's an awesome speaker, but he is one of the greatest examples I have seen of that kind of sharing. And as an archivist, one of the obstacles that I face being a county archivist in a small county in a southern Tennessee county is trying to get the African American community to share their records. I understand their fears, I understand their trepidation, but I also know that if they're not shared, they get, just like any other records, they get thrown away, they get destroyed, they get, they're just not saved. And so in order for us to be able to tell the story, they need to share too.
Yeah,
that's kind of an obstacle that I have to figure out, where I'm at, because in my archive, we don't have very much for that particular community, and they're not really forthcoming. And so I'm hoping to do some things maybe to change that in the future.
What's the statistics for your county?
I'm going to say it's
far as
probably
race-wise
10%.
For African American or people of color?
Yeah.
That's low.
Yes.
Yeah, that is low.
But they've been here forever.
So
That's
there's
just it. Their
longevity
family, there is,
Okay.
yes. And so, it's great families here, great family names, like I said, that have gotten back for a long time.
Yeah.
And because you can go back in the records and you can see them. So they were here even before we were a county, back into the 1860s. They were here, and their descendants are still here. And so, and they are at their history. They take their history very important. We have an AME church here that just celebrated their 150th birthday.
Wow.
The building isn't that old, but their congregation was the first congregation in our community, in our area.
Wow.
Well,
so
maybe they could be encouraged. Maybe the church could be encouraged to hold a workshop or something to encourage people and say, archives is here. You need to get your records and get them in the archives.
But one of the things you have to realize is that trust plays an important role when you're talking to people about sharing. And
I
so
agree.
To get that sharing to take place, someone has to become a part of the group and say, we're here together to work on something. It's not you share what you have.
Right.
And I also want to go back to what Shelley said about the emotions. It is very emotional when you start African American research. And just discovering an ancestor on an inventory. Yeah. It's a touch of reality that in your mind, you know your ancestors were most likely enslaved. But until you see it on an inventory, it's like a bolt of lightning going through your heart. I mean, it just hits you. Yeah. And you have to stop and you have to realize that people are going through all kinds of emotional reactions when they see that. They want to cry. They'll cry just when they see their ancestors on a census. But when you see somebody on an inventory with a price tag, or you start reading and that ancestor's name is there, and then they say, and their increase, which means that they are chattel, property.
Right.
It takes understanding what someone else is going through.
Exactly.
And so I just want to make certain that we make sure that we understand what's going on. Tread lightly, be kind, be sensitive, and even presenting it. Because sometimes I've even heard presentations in which the names are just said and in their increase, and it's like just talking about your grocery list. Well, this is not a grocery list to people who are sitting there saying, wait a minute, these are people.
These are people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't even at some point, I can't imagine. I know how horrible it feels to me when I see those names, but I can't even to know that was your ancestor. It's beyond, anything.
That's the time when I well up during being a presenter.
Yeah.
Because there's an example and I need to just stop using it. And True Lewis and I both, we had we're sharing this inventory sheet. And this was right after you found somebody and you were on the news down at Edgefield or something, Bernice. And I remember Bernice was so excited about what she had found, and then it hit her and you saw the change in the face and it hit. And then True has shared the document with me, and I'm starting to well up already. And it was a female, and it's not one of our ancestors. And the value was like 350 cents. And the 50 cents was gut wrenching. And you think about, wait a minute, are you kidding me? I can handle the 300, but what is it with the 50 cents? It just took a whole life of itself.
Exactly.
And I told her, I said, I dumped that right in my trash. I don't want to see that again. I couldn't grasp it. And I've seen inventory sheets and things like that. And Negro Billy, or like you said, the word increase is another thing that drives me nuts.
Right.
And I think it's Maryland or something. During one time, the law was they would free the mother, but still the increases would be enslaved. And they're not even born yet.
Yeah,
but that was
they're not
one
even
way
born
to
yet.
keep the mother there with the other kids and any babies she had, and she was free. So, that was a strategy used. So it's I think
some tough stuff.
It's tough, but it has to come out. And in the United States.
Toni also we were talking about where can we share when we find something. So I wanted to let's see if I can do it again, guys. So I wanted to go back and share. Hang on, I got to get the right thing because that's us. Okay. She also gave me the website for IAAM, and this is their the family history site, and you can go on here and you can contribute documents that you find. And so this is just one of the different places, and I'll put some others in the show notes. It'll be in the blog post, but you can contribute photos, any kind of documents that you find. There's some forms to do it, so that Bible records, there's a whole bunch of different things. So you can get them up for people to find, so the community can look for them. So this is a special place to go as well. And so there are places that we can upload these things, and people can go and find them, because it doesn't do us, like we said, doesn't do us any good to find them and not get them out there. We've got social media, we've got all sorts of different platforms where we can share the information that we're finding.
That's right.
So make sure that you do that when you're finding those records. Get them out there, and from both sides. If you find something about a slaveholder, get all that out there, because the slaveholder's family is looking for records too. And so we can work together and get that all out there. Some of us may not want to know that, but we have to know it. It's what was going on. It's the records. It was in the records. We can't hide it. We can't. It happened. Absolutely. So we have to get those records out there and share them with each other. I'm excited to just a real quick plug, if y'all don't mind, at Roots Tech. I'll be at Roots Tech. Who else is going to be at Roots Tech? Shelley, you come in. Bernice, I know Toni can't be there. Anybody else on the panel? Oh no. Uh-oh. Did Shelley lose her? Shelley's muted. You're muted, darling. She's still muted. Well, she'll figure it out.
I'm trying to go to NGS and FGS. So
we'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying for both.
Good. Well, I hope you can show up. This is why, because I don't know if anybody knows Sharon Gillens. She is a wonderful researcher. She's from Galveston. She is a descendant of enslaved people, but she says that her real connection with making sure records get out is actually from her job. She was hired to actually, she is researching for a family and has found some amazing records on the enslaved for this family, and trying to get the records shared has been a real process for her. So we are getting together at Roots Tech, and we're actually going to have a roundtable discussion.
Good.
We want a real discussion on how we can help each other. So she and I will take a couple of minutes to get things started, and then we want some questions asked and answered and experiences, and we want to actually get this dialogue off and running and keep it going, and figure out some ways as we're talking to continue and where to continue, so that people can be found. That is the point, reuniting families. So I'm really excited about that. So if anybody's coming to Roots Tech, the schedules come out. I don't know if it's set in stone yet, but right now it looks like it'll be the Friday of Roots Tech at 9:30 in the morning. So we would love to have anybody who's coming to Roots Tech come and join us with that. Join in the conversation, share your experiences and your thoughts on the best ways to do this and work together. So
And Sharon is a wonderful person. I've had Sharon on my show many times, and she's wonderful. Yes, she definitely is.
She's great. We met very serendipitously sitting in the family history library last year. She heard me talking about my presentation on how the descendants of slave owners could get those records out, and she started talking to me. She goes, I do a presentation, but kind of on the other side. It was meant to be that the two of us were sitting next to each other. So this topic is just something that's dear to both of our hearts, and we really, really want to, just get this movement going. So it's not just, we'll talk about it here, and then we forget about it for a while, and then we'll talk about it here, and we forget about it for a while. And so I think it's just really, really important that we do this. Before, if anybody else has got anything else they'd like to say.
Well, I just want to say something about, it's back to Toni, really.
Yes, exactly.
And it's the wonderful service that Toni is providing to people that are requesting Civil War pension files.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Toni knows I love those files. I live in the archives, so I know how valuable those
Toni,
United
tell
States
us about that.
are.
Thank you, Bernice.
We're going to open with 1,000 USCT pension files. And just in South Carolina alone, more than 5,000 men served in the United States Colored Troops.
Right.
But so we have a Facebook genealogy of the United States Colored Troops.
I'll get that
and
link up
because
too,
we're ordering for our research collection, if you have a pension file that you need, you just grab the index card and post it to the post at the top of the group. And we just work down every time we place an order. We work down and order as many as we can. And so far we have 700. And yes, and we're going to have 1,000 to open with.
That's amazing. This it's just amazing. The work that you're doing is absolutely amazing. Now I know that you've also got a special announcement that we get to hear on GenFriends, and I'm excited. Announcement, you said that between Family Search.
Oh, yes.
Well, if you're allowed, are you allowed to tell us?
Well, I can tell you a little.
Okay.
IAAM Center for Family History and Black Pro Gen Live are working with Family Search on a really awesome February plan that involves rolling out and or highlighting a different record set every day in February.
That's so awesome. That's wonderful.
So I'll be blogging about each of the record sets, and then Nika from Black Pro Gen, Nika Smith, and some of the other Black Pro Gen panelists are going to record videos about the record sets. And so each day you can expect to see a new record set revealed. So we're excited.
Oh, that's so exciting. That is so exciting. And you've done so much work. I know that you did a lot of indexing with Family Search, and that's now the project's been turned over to the public. And so there's, I'm sure something else will come down the pipeline that we can start indexing. It always does. But that's another way. Maybe you're not finding records of the enslaved in your research, but you can help out when these indexing projects come along. That's another good way to help. Just because you might not have any interest in that particular record set doesn't mean you can't spend some time indexing to help others, because it all comes back around, doesn't it? It all comes back around. There is somebody out there who's indexed the records that you're finding for your ancestors. So, get out there and take a few minutes and help other people find their ancestors in the documents.
Yeah. So. You never give anything away that doesn't come back to you in one way or another. And you know what? The research mystery that family Bible that he shared, the research mystery that was actually solved in the South Carolina State Inventories and Bills of Sale that we indexed way back in 2010. I think we finished those up. And so all those pieces came together to answer this question. It was amazing.
That is amazing.
Love it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Anybody else have any last minute questions for Toni?
I do.
Okay.
Toni, can you describe a little bit what's in the History Center, the Family History Center? I know you talked about having the Civil War pension, you know, opening with that. What else is there? Give us the design.
We're excited. We're excited about it. Before you get to the actual research center, there's a circular area where there will be museum exhibits about family history. And so each exhibit will take a specific document and feature a family who's had incredible luck using that document to discover their ancestors.
Oh, that's
I love
beautiful.
that.
So
Yeah.
we've got some for Freedmen's Bureau records, we've got some for pension files, we've got some, you know, for various records. And the common thread that runs through all of the exhibits in that area concern reuniting families that were separated during slavery. And
wow.
some people either carried away by migrating planters or sold away, and the pieces have come back together. So that's what the exhibits
That's good.
are going to be. It's going to be really nice. And then when you come into the actual research center, we will have the USCT pension files. We will have microfilms from around the country that are only available in like regional archives that we really wanted to pull together to have in one spot.
Wow.
You know, so we're ordering, for instance, a lot of microfilms from the South Carolina Department of Archives and History, where you would normally have to drive up to Columbia to access those. Or they
He's so excited.
That's
So
wonderful.
How far are you from
takes an hour.
Right.
It'll take me 2 hours to get down to Charleston, but it takes me 3 to get to Columbia. So it takes an hour off my trip.
Yeah. And then we're going to have some.
When the 30,000 Africans came through, what is that time frame, that era, that span?
Right, the very last days of the Atlantic slave trade, so like from 1806 to 1809.
Okay, great.
There. And it was one of the most massive movements of people into Charleston. You know, you had all the years of the Atlantic trade, but everybody knowing that that trade was about to be closed, they were just bringing people in.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
And in fact, some people actually brought people in and then waited until the trade was over. They held on to enslaved people, and they were actually kept in a warehouse at Gadsden's Wharf. And there was a particularly brutal winter where 700 people died of exposure in that warehouse. Yeah, so I mean, it's sacred ground, and you know, it's a place of reverence.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to come down there.
I can't either. Yes.
I do want to share that she is also an instructor at Maggie.
That's right.
So she teaches
the first time this year.
Well, last year. This year. That's true. I'm already in 2020.
That's right.
So she's coming back and teaching in the track 1B that is specifically regarding slavery.
Yeah. And you know, and for those of us, sorry, Shelley, for those of us in the South Carolina area too, we have been very, very lucky to have Toni come and present.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for us all throughout the state, and enjoyed that. So
we'll be able to do a lot more of that now.
Now that she's actually going to be living here, so that's great. But we just appreciate everything that you do. And all your many hats that you wear.
We love the work. We eat it for breakfast.
And we are so grateful that you came on and talked to us tonight, and get us more motivated to do the things that we need to do to work together and get these records out and remember these names, get them out there, get these families connected. And so we hope that our viewers watching this will feel motivated, and we'll have links on the blog post. And if you have any questions, please post your questions on the blog post too, and we can get them to Toni or anybody else on the panel if you need some help. And especially if you've got some records that you need to get out there and you want to know how to get them out there, please get a hold of one of us. Leave your questions on the blog post. There's always links to our panelists on the blog post as well, so you can get a hold of them and ask your questions. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to everybody, to Toni and our panelists, and we will see you next time on GenFriends. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.